Foundation. Doris is a social entrepreneur, a coach, a consultant. She's worked in fundraising at the international level for over 25 years. And Doris, you have a knack for cultivating relationships and then infusing encouragement into those spaces, helping individuals and charities and businesses feel that encouragement and achieve more than they've imagined. And Doris, as a longtime Langley resident, she lives here with some plants, her Shih Tzu Terrier, and a few beautiful paintings of her late husband, Ray. And she also has, it was incorrectly reported in the newspaper that she has a tattoo on her chest. It's a tattoo on her wrist that says uncommon. Family is tattooed on her heart, that's on her wrist. And Doris gets very excited about working with people, and sometimes she forgets to sleep. So Doris, would you come and encourage us this morning?
There was a man at an airport and he wanted to buy a bag of very small donuts and a coffee. So he buys his bag of small donuts and he buys his coffee, and he's looking for somewhere to sit. But all the tables are all taken. But there's one table where there's one man sitting, and he thinks, oh, I'll just go and sit opposite him. So he goes there, he puts his coffee down, he puts his bags down, he gets his coat off, puts it on the chair, sits down, opens his coffee, has a sip, picks up the bag of donuts, opens it, takes out a donut, starts eating it, puts the bag down. The man opposite stretches over, picks up the bag of donuts, opens it, takes out a donut, starts eating it, puts the bag down, smiles. The other man cannot believe what he has just seen. He cannot believe that the man has just stolen one of his donuts. He's thinking, what is the world coming to? What is the world? But then he thinks, well, maybe, the guy's not quite there, or, he better not say anything in case the guy kind of erupts and he's violent. But he gives him one of these, if looks could kill them. He picks up the bag of donuts, he takes out another donut, and he moves it near to his coffee, as far away from the other man. While he's sipping his coffee, the man stretches over, picks up the bag, takes out another donut, starts eating it, puts it on the table, pushes it back, smiles. The other guy can't believe he's done it twice. He's stolen 2 of my donuts. He's amazed. He can't believe it. He's really angry. But he decides not to say anything. Anyway, the man gets up to leave. So the other man thinks it's about time you left, you donut thief. He put his coat on, he picked up his bag, he then picked up the bag of donuts. There's one donut inside. He takes it out, he breaks it in half, he puts half in his mouth, puts half on the bag, he moves the bag, he smiles, he waves, off he goes. The other guy thinks, I'm not touching that donut, you donut thief. You're probably full of infection. Anyway, he looks at his watch. Oh, it's time for me to go. He gets up, he puts his coat on, he then bends down to pick up his bag, and sitting on top of his bag was his bag of donuts. He was complaining that the other man was stealing his donuts, when in fact the other man was sharing his donuts. Now, listen to me. God owns all the donuts. And we're complaining. God owns all of them. He owns all the donuts. Listen, every week we get a bag of donuts. God gives us a bag of donuts every week. Inside there are 10. God says, take one of the 10 and give it to the church that you go to. Okay, that's called tithing. Okay? So you give a donut to the church that you go to. Right? They're God's donuts, so don't complain. They're all God's donuts. He just says, give one to the church that you're part of. So important, isn't it? Yeah, now you're left with 9, and you need 11. Hey, I need 11, I'll just give them one away. I've only got 9. And what is incredible is, if you need 11 or you need 12, somehow, the 9 becomes 12. Somehow the 9 becomes what you need.
Okay, that says it all. And that truth, amen, go ahead and clap, that we just watched, I have seen that lived out countless times throughout my life here at home and around the world. In God's economy, there is enough. There is more than enough if we share. Give back to God what is God, use what we need, and then share. Or sometimes give to God what is God, then share, and then take what we need. Scriptures say He will open the windows of heaven for you and pour out all the blessings you need. Need being the most important word in that sentence. But it's not just your need, it's the needs of others as well. What's the secret? Trust. I want to thank the organizers for today's breakfast for giving me an opportunity to come and share a few stories with you. And I want to thank all of you for being living examples of what it means to share what you have, your time and your talents. Friday, October the 18th, 2024. This is the day before the day. And I know that there are some of you in this room that are tired as you go the last lap. Thank you for giving yourself to the call, for being vulnerable. You've not lived today until you've done something for someone who can never repay you. That quote is from John Bunyan's Pilgrim's Progress, and it encapsulates the way my husband Ray navigated the final chapter of his life. When Ray was diagnosed with stage 4 esophageal cancer, he faced the news with a remarkable perspective. It was like he'd been given kryptonite. And this usually quiet, albeit extraordinarily hilarious, man became superhuman. He would share with people that knowing your expiry date clarifies what truly matters and really does ramp up your courage and convictions. Ray's humor would often win the day in whatever room he found himself. Even more so once he knew he was on his final trek. So much so, there was a whole lot of Ray-isms that we learned about after the fact. And my husband is probably one of the very few people that I know that has actually attended their celebration of life while he was still alive. Our church home group hosted a Ray's Not Dead party with his blessing. No, Ray's Not Dead Yet parties. Laughter, tears, and spoken words of gratitude were shared that night. Not just to Ray, but for Ray, but from Ray. Some said we should all do this. It would be pretty cool to hear what they're going to say when you're gone. This man, who had been raised in very humble circumstances on the other side of the tracks, literally on the other side of the Fraser, was raised by a single mom who managed to somehow teach her children that even though being raised on welfare meant you might just barely have enough of anything on any given day, there was always just a little bit that you could always share. My husband learned early to give, not because he had much to give, but because he knew exactly what it felt like to have nothing and to be that kid. Ray's commitment to Christ later in life was indeed life-giving. He grabbed hold and hung on to the biblical truth, to whom much is given, much is required. He lived out the promise of Joshua 24:15. As for me and my house, we will serve the Lord, and we did. That generosity seed that was planted early in his life blossomed into something extraordinary. He made it giving for all of us super simple, and it didn't have to look the same on any given day. He just showed us how. He always gave that first donut to the local church. He was very faithful to his local church, but it was also okay to come alongside that young man in downtown Langley, you know, the one with the grocery cart full of empties. And the right thing to do wasn't to just look the other way, it was just to show up with even more empties and fill up his cart. And while you were doing that, get to know his story and find more meaningful ways to engage with him. Or maybe it was that little bit extra that ended up in our bank account last month that was exactly what that struggling young family that we'd heard about needed to make sure they got their car repaired and their kids had snowsuits that winter. Or the next time he left a restaurant, it was always a good idea to look around, pick a random stranger, a couple, a single, a family, and just pay their bill and leave. And maybe, and this happened often, you're called to stretch, to invest in a program or a building or that local or international ministry that you just decided that was a priority and do it. Ray's generosity was boundless and joy in giving was contagious. He lived by this principle from Scripture. Top line, God loves to bless his people. Bottom line, we are then called to be a blessing. When it became clear that cancer would be his transport to heaven, Ray and I met with our lawyer to set up a family foundation. His dream, let the giving journey live on in and through his family and friends. Let them experience joy in giving. 9 months after that meeting, around 9 a.m., on October the 23rd, 2017, we received the call from our lawyer, Ken Volkanot. A lot of you know him in this room. Great news! CRA has granted the Joyful Living, Joyful Giving Foundation charitable status. Again, God's timing. Because just 9.5 hours later, on that very same day, Ray crossed the threshold from earth to heaven. And one of his last messages to our family was, keep going. This story is not finished. God is still writing the larger script. It really was supernatural what the Lord did, even getting charitable status so quickly, and what is continuing to happen because of this one man's leadership. I'm pretty sure Ray would be stunned to see what that final mission has actually meant for people and projects locally and globally. You can learn more about it by scanning the QR code up there. But Ray's leadership reminds us that we just need to go. And the more you walk, the less you have to talk. And it's a very good thing to love and to live and to give extravagantly and unconditionally. And finally, live life with no regrets and in everything as unto the Lord. Now, if Ray was here, he would love to surprise you. So on behalf of the Joyful Living, Joyful Giving Board of Directors, and Peter Fassbender is on our board, and my son Travis is on our board, and they're here with us today. We are pleased to tell you that if you're at table 10 or table 17, and you look underneath your seats before you leave, 2 of you are going to go home with a $50 gift card from the Trading Post in Fort Langley. His real celebration of life. They actually put them under every seat.
That's true.
So
It's funny.
He was just like that. He would love that. So table 10 and table 17, take a look before you leave when he was going home. And why did we choose the Trading Post? Not just because the owners are dear friends, but because the Trading Post understands generosity. Community is at their core. In fact, their community fund embodies this value. They redirect some of the funds from selected menu items right back to local nonprofits. So many businesses in Langley just get it, that doing good is good for business. You know who you are in this room, so thank you. Ray grew up in Haney, I grew up in Prince George. Ray's father passed away when he was in grade 1. My father abandoned our family when I was 9. We were both raised by single moms who showed us what resilience, sacrifice, commitment, and yes, generosity looks like in real time. I was forced to grow up really fast. At best, both of us had a nominal connection to faith as young people. But one bright spot in my childhood was the community that surrounded my mom. There was that landlord who, for some crazy reason, waived the rent for 6 months so my mom could get herself and her kids somehow established. With 3 kids in tow, the youngest being 2 weeks, and me being 9, her new co-workers at Woodward's became our extended family. It was crazy when I think of it now, but Woodward's hired for attitude and willingness to learn way back then. And they had some of the most incredible staff. That little department store staff in Prince George, BC had a values-based mandate long before social purpose or corporate social responsibility was a thing. And they were my introduction into seeing selfless generosity in real time. They were a lifeline, helping us maintain dignity through tough times. They ensured our family received lovely Christmas gifts. They supported my brothers in hockey, and they even enrolled this rough and tumble teenager in etiquette classes. They cared for my mom as if she were one of their own, and I learned what loving generosity looked like by example. Their influence, giving and caring, would have a lifelong impact on who I would eventually become. And I would forever have a soft spot for little 9-year-old girls that had to grow up fast. Little did I know that this would also become part of my larger script. Years later, I found myself on the TWU campus as a receptionist at the affiliate college. Actually, that's where we met, Jeff. Early in my TWU career, I was invited to join the athletic department. They had a dream team. It was the year TWU athletics was moving into the highest level of collegiate play in Canada, and it was a thrilling moment in the university's history. The education that I received in my 10 years on the campus, both in the classroom and the workplace, defined my calling and purpose because of the generosity of so many people that made deposits in my life and that fanned the flame of leadership. But there was one man who was so incredibly generous, who gave up a significant career as a senior policy analyst and a speechwriter in the Department of Foreign Affairs and International Trade to take on a leadership role at TWU as the VP of Academic Affairs. He had worked in the corporate and business world, and he knew that there was something missing, and he had a dream to create a program that would emphasize proven servant leadership skills and ability. He knew that real-life practical applications and leading like Jesus could and would bring transformation to the workplaces in every sector. Dr. Don Page generously gave up a stellar career to design, lead, and mentor many in the TWU Master's degree in leadership. I had the pleasure of being in the second cohort of students that took that class, and before I graduated, my husband, a civil servant in the provincial government, enrolled. This was not just an academic experience or exercise, this was an investment in people. Yesterday I was at the Global Leadership Summit, and Dan Owolabi, Executive Director of Branches Worldwide, a nonprofit dedicated to investing in high-impact entrepreneurs around the world, challenged us to ask ourselves, who is your legacy? Who do you see potential in where other people don't? Don Page has invested in hundreds of leaders from every sector of society around the world. That's generosity. Dr. Don Page, we are your legacy. Thank you for seeing our potential. Don Page modeled and generously lived what it means to be, and that leaders lead by serving and serve by leading. And being a lifelong leader means you are a lifelong learner. Generous leaders multiply themselves. They empower others who empower others. It's with a heavy heart that we are acknowledging that Don has cancer. And over this past month, his health has taken a steep decline. It just seems fitting that a couple of you will walk away today with Don's book, Servant Empowered Leadership. DO Philanthropy is thrilled to gift this book, a treasure trove of experiential leadership, learning exercises, case studies, discussion group exercises, and so much more. If you're sitting at a table, table 14 or table 7, and there is in front of your seat one of my little, I don't have business cards, I have stickers, then you can come and get your book after we're finished. Everything that I have learned about generosity and what it meant to connect vision, mission, and opportunity to this point prepared me for the next 17 years of my life. I served alongside an incredibly passionate and committed international team at Opportunity International. Our vision was to help empower people living in poverty to transform their lives, their children's futures, and their communities through the power of microfinance. I had a front row seat, and I was able to be part of turning up the volume and building high-performing fundraising teams and strategies that would not only raise awareness and funding from individuals, businesses, and foundations, but also would be part of transforming entrepreneurial donors' lives here as they connected with entrepreneurs in the global south. I learned more about generosity over those 17 years, and I could literally write a book on what it means to live a life generously. But the wonderful thing was, those lessons came my way as I sat under that papaya tree in Ghana, or on a rooftop in Colombia, in the barrios of Peru, or any other unique and spectacular location in so many of the developing countries we were working in. Even though our clients only had a little, they always had enough to share with the donor guests that I had brought to encourage them in their businesses. Without exception, we always came away being the ones that had been given the most. In 2021, my husband's challenge to keep on living generously and sharing not just financially, but my time with others, and Don Page's challenge to multiply myself became the driving force behind the launch of DO Philanthropy Inc. Our dream is to help charities across Canada and yes, internationally thrive. You can find out more about us, the work we do, and the charities we're serving by checking out the QR code. One of those charities that is very close to my heart and is the reason I spend a lot of time right here at the LEC or out on the soccer pitch is the TW Athletic Spartans. I'm on the board of the Spartan Foundation, and it's because of stories like the one that I'm going to close with that all of us that are on the board are committed to not just raising money for the Spartan athletes, but multiplying ourselves by being the team behind the team and investing in complete champions. Let me introduce you to one of those champions.
So I'm Grayson Hardy. I'm 22 years old, and I'm from Chilliwack, British Columbia. So growing up, things weren't always like super easy. Grew up in a Christian home. When I was around 6, my parents split up, and that really caused a lot of strain on our family. Pretty tough couple of years. And then when I was around 9 years old, my dad passed away in a car accident. Going through your teen years as a young man without that father figure in your life, you're very susceptible to a lot of influences and just stupid decisions. And so for much of my teen years, I did that. That just looked like drinking and just getting involved with substances and just people I shouldn't have been getting involved with. And then it wasn't until October of my grade 12 year that I found out my sister was diagnosed with stage 4 cancer. Really sort of, I would say, abandoned my faith. It was hard to have trust in God when, you know, I could look back and see all these things that I'd been through. And with my sister getting sick, that really just brought up a lot of like the grief and trauma of the past that I just didn't deal with properly. And so it really put me at I would say, probably the lowest point in my life. I dropped out of school in my grade 12 year, stopped showing up to work, I quit the football team. I pretty much just gave up on everything, and it lasted for quite a while, even after my sister was healthy again. Kept trying to fill that hole to feel like that sense of normalcy again. And it really wasn't until coming here and being a part of this team and a part of this community that I realized God was what I was missing that whole time. I just really heavily relied on my teammates to sort of build up my relationship with God back to where it was in the past. And now, honestly, even 4 years later, that's something I'm still trying to work on. Rugby, it's a tough sport to reflect that on the field, but we try and do that as best as possible. What we do is sort of serving God through putting our bodies on the line and doing our jobs well and serving our teammates. I think, taking that outside of rugby and trying to put those qualities on display in my own life and in my own relationships, that's definitely a goal. And I think it transfers over quite well into normal life. My faith in God and my relationship with God is at probably the strongest point it's ever been in my life, and it wouldn't be where it is now if it wasn't for my experience here at Trinity, and if it wasn't for the spiritual leaders on the team and the coaching staff that really care about our relationships with God and our faith.
Grayson faced challenge upon challenge from his childhood. He was a high school dropout, but now Grayson is the academic leader on the Spartan rugby team. He is multiplying himself by helping first-year students. He's a key leader on the Spartans leadership team, and he has spent time leading his rugby teammates as together they've helped build feeding stations and serving the poor communities in Paraguay. He's the cornerstone of the rugby team in the scrum as the starting right head prop. Upon graduation, Grayson is returning to his hometown of Chilliwack, and he will be that inspirational teacher in the classroom and that motivational coach on the pitch who can truly testify to what it looks like to have been loved unconditionally and having experienced extravagant generosity. If you want to learn more about the Spartan Foundation, I encourage you to come out to our Complete Champions reception, little plug, little advertisement, Steve, right here, and hear two-time Olympian and Team Canada's men's volleyball and TW Spartan alumni, Lucas Van Berkel, come and share his story. November 22nd, 3 p.m. here. Check it out on the Spartan Foundation website. Generosity begats generosity. And wouldn't you agree there were never more important days for us to remember and live this out than the days we are living in. Thank you to every single one of you for your leadership, for your generosity in the way you're investing your lives in our community, and for living out your call. There really is no place quite like Langley City or Langley Township. And I think we can all agree there's nowhere we would rather call home. So let's go, let's be, let's do. Let's leave here committed to love fiercely and live generously. Thank you.
Doris. I'm going to invite Joel Schachter to come up and represent the organizing committee, and Joel has a gift for you, Doris.
Thank you, Doris. I really appreciate your words. And it reminded me of some of my own challenges with my faith walk and generosity. I remember when I became a Christian, and I started to, I used to think it was a big deal to throw $10 in a church, but at some point somebody preached a sermon and it caught me, and I said, okay, I'm going to test this out. So the donut story is actually an excellent story. I got a good giggle out of it, but the part about where the 9 donuts you had left became 12, I experienced that myself. And I'm a real estate agent, for those of you that don't know. And I remember making a decision about 25 years ago that I wasn't going to work on Sundays, and see how that affected my life. And if you know real estate people that do a lot of work on Sundays, and my colleagues said, "You're nuts. This is going to hurt you." And anyway, that first year that I stopped working Sundays, my income doubled. So I'm thinking about stopping Saturdays too. Anyway, Doris, thanks for your words. We've got a book here that Dallas on our team searched high and low for you. It's a Langley book, and a little gift as well. So thank you for your.
Can we get your books? Whoever gets these.
Joel is going to lead us now in the prayer for those in authority, and so that's printed in your program.